All right, everyone. All right. We're here. It's the final Destiny 2 Year 1 video ever. Ever. So I thought that a great way to say goodbye to Destiny 1 or Destiny 2 Year 1 would be to do a review of the totality of what we experienced in Destiny 2 Year 1. So here we go. Destiny 2 Year 1 was a very interesting and transformative experience for the Destiny player base. A complete rework and reintroduction of all weapons in the game, having those weapons be introduced as kinetic energy and power instead of primary, secondary, and heavy, led to a sweeping change to the meta of how the game played, slowing down PvP and making PvE interesting and different for a short period of time. But ultimately, I can't say this enough, I think... and I'll definitely say this about myself. It's important to be able to admit that you were wrong. I was incredibly wrong about how I thought the PvP, PvE, everything would play out. All through Destiny 1, we were asking for double primaries. We finally get it. And we were asking for more primary play. We finally get it, and it just kind of turned into... I don't know. It really slowed the game down, and whether or not that ended up being, because of the time to kill changes, or if it was because of other stuff, that can be debated. But Bungie took a big risk changing the way that weapons worked in Destiny 1, and it could have turned out great. Or in Destiny 2 Year 1, it could have turned out great. It certainly didn't turn out as people expected. As we now thankfully have the new weapon system that's been introduced, the what we're going to be enjoying going forward, with the introductory of special weapons and primary weapon ammo, along with kinetic and energy slots, which is really exciting. I actually feel like you might be confused as to why I opened with, hey, this is let's talk about weapons. But I do think that, the weapon in Destiny is our tool. We have two sets of tools primarily, our Guardian's energy and our weapons. And the fundamental change to our weapons changed the way that we interacted with the game universe, slowing certain things down, speeding certain things up. And ultimately getting us to a place where, hold on, my wife is texting me. She says, what are you doing? YouTube video for the day / final D2 Year 1 wrap up. I used to edit these things out, but I feel like fuck it, dude. Why not? So it really changed the way that we interacted with the universe. She's like, oh, okay. This is fun. This is the Chinese food. Yes. This is great. In the middle of this video, chat, I want you to comment, if you made it here, what Chinese food you would like me to order, because I'm going to order orange chicken. Anyway, we have two fundamental ways to interact with the universe. We have our power, or we have our weapons, and we have our Guardian's energy. And the fundamental changes to the weapons changed the way that we approached every encounter, which is kind of why I'm here on the Leviathan, because our capstone activities changed as well. Raids went from experiences in Destiny 1 that were very boss-driven, very combat-driven, to the experiences that we had in Destiny 2, where it was where not only do we see the introduction of a new style of endgame content, whether you're talking about Escalation Protocol or you're talking about raid layers, but a larger focus on the mechanics of a raid. Now, mechanics are an important part of raiding. King's Fall, arguably, for many people, and even Wrath of the Machine, were both very mechanically heavy raids. The difference between what we got with them and what we have in any of these encounters is a lot of the mechanics, especially if you want to look at Wrath of the Machine, were wrapped into boss battles, whereas, you know, with the Leviathan, there's kind of only one boss fight and 4 puzzles that you go through together. So that fundamental change definitely put a lot of people off. I think, again, it was certainly a great experiment. It could have gone well. People could have fallen in love with more mechanically different raids, and they could have said, oh, this is exactly what I've been looking for Destiny. But one thing is for sure coming out of Destiny 2 year 1 is that the complexity of the raiding experience is most likely not going to decrease anytime soon. One of the number one pieces of feedback that I hear often is, I just want a boss with a big pool of health that I have to shoot a lot. And I don't think that that's ever really going to be that sort of straight up simplistic mechanic. I don't think that's ever really going to be part of our Destiny experience. I think that, you know, the idea of, you know, needing to set your Guardian up to do damage and damage cycles makes a lot of sense. It's pretty much standard MMO behavior. And, you know, every single boss fight and every single encounter that we've ever done has definitely had damage phases. It's just whether or not you felt those phases were engaging, whether you liked, you know, Golgoroth, or you liked War Priest, or you liked the Mechanist fight. I think that the real power of Bungie's ability to design Endgame is making those damage cycles for bosses fun and engaging. And I hope that going forward, most of the encounters that we're going to have in the raid are going to be encounters where we're fighting bosses, not necessarily encounters like we have been experiencing where it's been where it's been sort of us doing a combat puzzle. You know, I think that, you know, the sections in King's Fall that everyone liked that were sort of puzzle based, you know, whether it was the dick punch wall or it was going through Golgoroth's maze and solving the mystery inside of there, or the huge long you know, jump ship puzzle. Those things were engaging, but they weren't timed. They weren't part of a boss battle, and I think that made those things more engaging. Whereas, you know, in Destiny 2, our end game became very much, you have a certain amount of time to complete this specific task, so go do it. Thankfully, you know, sort of, especially with Spire of Stars, we had the introduction of, you know, some mechanics there that sort of harkened back to the original Destiny 1, you know, mechanic of, you know, it takes you can take as long as you want to get through this jumping platform section while you're throwing this ball, you know, which made it more enjoyable, and you had fun. You had time to figure it out and screw around and throw your buddies off ledges and make them fall and die and things like that. You know, camaraderie moments, I guess, inside of the raid where you get to just sort of enjoy the space. I really do hope that we get a lot more of that going forward. We also had the introduction of endgame patrol activities, which is something we've all been asking for a long time. Escalation Protocol, which I think is a big fat fucking thumbs up. I personally wish that Bungie didn't make Escalation Protocol easier, because they clearly had in mind Escalation Protocol becoming accessible after, you know, right before Taken King. Goddamn it, right before Forsaken came out, where all of us have 400 light and all this other stuff, but that's besides the point. I really do feel like Escalation Protocol was a home run. It could be improved in a number of ways, primarily by having open world matchmaking, which is going to bring me to my next point. Something that is surprisingly missing from Destiny 2 Year 1, and is apparently going to be missing in Destiny 2 Year 2, is in-game looking for group, or in-game matchmaking for all in-game activities. This is something that I still want to see. It's something that I still think is incredibly important. Asking players to go outside of your game in order to engage in activities inside of your game it's going to decrease completion rate, which is something that's kind of plagued Destiny 2 since the very beginning. Folks have not had super high completion rates of endgame activities, and that's something I think and I want to have everybody do. I want everyone to experience the raid. So hopefully we're going to have something like that going forward. That covers PvE. PvP took a big nosedive in Destiny 2 Year 1. It was heartbreaking for me to see as a content creator to watch, all my buds who are PvP gods kind of one way or another be forced to sort of walk away from the franchise because they just couldn't stomach the way the game played. The changes to the weapon system, the changes to time to kill, the tweaks to abilities, the slower spin up time on abilities, the fact that sticky grenades did one hit, melee overrides didn't have a lot of power. Titans couldn't one hit with shoulder charge. You rarely got chances to snipe. You rarely got chances to shotgun. You rarely had hero moments, and so that made the skill gap so flat that it turned into a giant hand-holding fest, and it was probably some of the least fun PvP I've experienced. And I didn't really realize how much I felt that way until we got a chance to play with the new weapon system, and suddenly I, was doing full streams, playing comp of all things and having a blast even when I got my ass kicked. So I feel like weapons are in an interesting place right now. Just the fundamental change that we have at the end of Year 1, where we get back primary, where we still have kinetic energy and power, but we have primary and secondary ammunition, primary, special, and heavy ammunition to sort of mix things up, is a really nice refined play on the old idea. It lets you do crazy shit like run 3 shotguns or snipers if you want at a massive penalty to yourself, but it opens up that freedom of play and allows us to have a really weird, wacky, zany experience. So I'm a big fan of that. And I'm hoping that going forward, Trials is reworked. It's obviously taking a break. I think that Trials unfortunately had a hard go at it from the very beginning of Destiny 2. I don't know if you guys remember this, but when Trials launched, it launched right on the tail of the raid. We had, we had the unfortunate experience of having to do the same sort of Trials on the same map 2 weeks back to back because of errors. There were breaks. There were issues with it. But ultimately, I feel like the fear that I had going into Destiny 2 when I heard them announce, hey, everybody, Trials is coming back, my biggest concern was everyone will just say, I've done this before, it's not fun and engaging. And along with the weapon system coupled in, and the fact that there were fundamental changes to the way the entire Trials system worked, whether it was the loss of boons, which made network errors fatal for passage runs, the hand-holding meta that developed because of the way weapons functioned together, or if it was, just simply that because of these other issues, there weren't any ultra mega incredible rewards that you wanted to get from Trials. There wasn't that adept weapon chase that everyone was going after. And I think that's one of the, that too, the whole PvP situation in Destiny 2 from launch to just a week ago really disappointed me and made me sad about all those things. But like I said, this is a review, and I've definitely put in my time for all the content, and I'm happy that literally everything I'm mentioning about PvP is either changed currently, being changed when we download when we download Forsaken. We already have the new weapon system, but on top of that, mods are being completely reworked, armor's being reworked, and fusion is being changed. The token system, which basically turned all rewards in the game into a slot machine that was uninteresting without random rolls, is being reworked as well. There are just so many positives that are coming up. to me, Destiny 2 Year 1, and I'll sum it all up with this. To me, Destiny 2 Year 1 felt like an experiment. Not, the toxic beta test bullshit. It felt like an experiment to say, what if we made everything in the game available to everybody? How would the market react to that? Because this is something that the entire internet was screaming about for Destiny 1. I want solo play. I want this. I want that. I want access to every exotic, every weapon, every time. And I think that we got that in Destiny 2. Everybody, if you put in the time, everybody could have everything all the time here at Destiny 2. Year 1. And one of the things I think that I'm looking forward to the most is the joy of seeing people with shit that I'll never have. In Destiny 2, there's already the Redrix's Claymore, that has suddenly become like the hottest thing in the universe to get because everyone wants to play PvP again. But I hope that there are multiple chases like that, exotics that feel like that, armor sets that feel like that, titles that feel like that. There's so many things that have been introduced. So from the bottom of my heart, I will give Destiny 2 Year 1 a phenomenal try. It was a great experiment. There were some really awesome highlights. Star's final boss fight was great and intense. I love the final boss fights for all three of the raiding encounters. Great. For the final bosses, I like Callus, I like Argos, and I like Ghaul. They're all great. The introduction of masterwork catalysts for exotic weapons was really interesting, sort of taking everything up to the next level. From their original introduction, I think that's great too. I really did have a great time, but overall, I think that the replayability of the game, the hobby of the game, which they have focused so much on bringing back in Year 2 with Forsaken, and then the annual pass, which they finally started teasing, and the introduction of new game modes like Gambit on top of everything else is really going to revitalize the game. So that's my prediction. Bungie, thank you for continuing to make this game that we love, even when the community is not necessarily the most receptive to the changes that you bring to the game, and thank you for working incredibly hard to take all of our feedback and turn it into the game that we are going to be playing once Forsaken launches. I am excited. I hope you are too. Talk to you next time. Peace. Boom.